A century of conflict setting the stage for Iran's involvement. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue with a history spanning over a century. At its core lies a struggle for land, resources, and self-determination between Israelis and Palestinians. This conflict has not only shaped the political and social landscape of the Middle East, but has also drawn in regional and global powers, each with its own interests and agendas. Iran's involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict is multifaceted and dates back to the aftermath of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The revolution, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, brought about a seismic shift in Iranian foreign policy, placing a strong emphasis on exporting the revolution's ideology and supporting Islamic movements worldwide. This ideological drive, coupled with strategic calculations, led Iran to actively support Palestinian groups opposed to Israel's existence. Iran's support for Palestinian groups stems from a combination of ideological and geopolitical motivations. Ideologically, Iran views the Palestinian cause as a struggle against oppression and injustice, aligning with its own revolutionary principles. Supporting Palestinian resistance against Israel is seen as a religious duty and a means of confronting what Iran perceives as Western imperialism in the region. Geopolitically, Iran's involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict allows it to project power and influence beyond its borders. By supporting groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran seeks to undermine Israeli security and challenge Western interests in the region. This strategy allows Iran to exert leverage in regional politics and position itself as a champion of the Palestinian cause, garnering support among segments of the Arab and Muslim world. Fueling the fire. Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah has been a significant factor in shaping the dynamics of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Both Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip, and Hezbollah, a powerful political and military force in Lebanon, are considered terrorist organizations by Israel, the United States, and several other countries. Iran, however, views them as legitimate resistance movements fighting against Israeli occupation. Iran's support for these groups takes various forms, including financial aid, military training, and the provision of weapons. Financial assistance from Iran helps Hamas and Hezbollah maintain their organizational structures, provide social services to their constituencies, and fund their military operations. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, is known to provide training to Hamas and Hezbollah fighters in Iran and elsewhere, enhancing their military capabilities. Perhaps the most concerning aspect of Iran's support is the transfer of weapons to Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran has been accused of supplying these groups with rockets, missiles, and other advanced weaponry, significantly bolstering their arsenals. These weapons have been used in numerous attacks against Israel, leading to significant casualties and raising tensions in the region. Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah has had a profound impact on the Israel-Palestine conflict. It has empowered these groups to challenge Israel militarily, making peace negotiations more difficult. The influx of Iranian weapons has also escalated the cycle of violence, leading to more frequent and deadly confrontations between Israel and these groups. Missiles and assassinations. Recent escalations in the conflict. Recent years have witnessed a surge in tensions and violence between Israel and Iran-backed groups, particularly Hamas. Rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel have become more frequent and intense, while Israel has responded with airstrikes targeting Hamas infrastructure and personnel. These escalations have resulted in significant casualties on both sides, further deepening the cycle of violence. One notable escalation occurred in May 2021, when Hamas launched a barrage of rockets into Israel, prompting a fierce Israeli military response. The 11-day conflict, known as the Guardian of the Walls operation, saw thousands of rockets fired from Gaza and hundreds of Israeli airstrikes on the Strip. The conflict resulted in hundreds of casualties, mostly Palestinian civilians, and widespread destruction in Gaza. Beyond the direct confrontations between Israel and Hamas, there has also been an increase in targeted assassinations and covert operations attributed to both sides. Israel has accused Iran of orchestrating attacks against Israeli targets abroad, while Iran has blamed Israel for the assassinations of its nuclear scientists and military officials. These covert actions, often shrouded in secrecy and deniability, further fuel mistrust and animosity between the parties involved. The recent escalations in the conflict highlight the volatile nature of the situation and the potential for further violence. the presence of Iran-backed groups with significant military capabilities on Israel's borders, coupled with the ongoing cycle of rocket fire and retaliatory strikes, creates a highly combustible environment where even a minor incident could spark a wider conflagration. From Iran-backed groups. Section 5. Regional ripples. Iran's impact on Middle Eastern stability. Iran's involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict has far-reaching consequences for regional stability in the Middle East. By supporting groups that challenge Israel's existence and fueling the cycle of violence, Iran exacerbates tensions and undermines prospects for a peaceful resolution. This approach has contributed to the fragmentation of the region and fueled proxy wars and sectarian conflicts. Iran's support for Hamas in Gaza has deepened the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian enclave. The frequent Israeli blockades and military operations, coupled with Hamas's own policies and governance, have created dire living conditions for the people of Gaza. The lack of basic services, economic opportunities, and freedom of movement has fueled despair and radicalization, making a sustainable peace even more elusive. Iran's influence extends beyond the Levant, with its support for Houthi rebels in Yemen posing a significant threat to regional security. The Houthis, backed by Iran, have been engaged in a protracted civil war against the Yemeni government, leading to a catastrophic humanitarian crisis and destabilizing the entire Arabian Peninsula. Iran's regional ambitions and support for armed groups have led to a counter-reaction from Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, which view Iran's growing influence as a direct threat to their interests. This rivalry has played out in proxy wars in Yemen, Syria, and elsewhere, further destabilizing the region and hindering efforts to address pressing issues such as terrorism, climate change, and economic development. Section 6. Seeking a solution. The uncertain path towards peace. The path towards a peaceful resolution of the Israel-Palestine conflict remains fraught with challenges. Iran's involvement, while not the sole obstacle, significantly complicates the situation and adds another layer of complexity to an already intractable problem. Addressing Iran's role is crucial for creating an environment conducive to meaningful negotiations and a lasting peace. International efforts to revive the Iran nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, offer a glimmer of hope. The agreement, which placed limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, was seen as a significant step towards easing tensions between Iran and the West. However, the Trump administration's withdrawal from the deal in 2018 and subsequent reimposition of sanctions have set back these efforts and led to a resurgence of tensions. Addressing Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah is equally important. While Iran views these groups as legitimate resistance movements, their designation as terrorist organizations by many countries, and their involvement in violent attacks against civilians make them unacceptable partners for peace. Any future negotiations must address the disarmament of these groups and ensure that they are not used as proxies in a wider regional conflict. Ultimately, a lasting solution requires a fundamental shift in the political calculus of all parties involved. This includes a willingness to compromise, a recognition of the other side's legitimate grievances, and a commitment to finding a peaceful resolution that guarantees the security and dignity of both Israelis and Palestinians. Until such a shift occurs, the specter of violence and instability will continue to loom large over the region.